Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Gannon. I'm the Assistant Principal of Guidance. We're going to record this session just so that we can post it on our website for those families that are not able to join us here this evening. I want to begin by really thanking you for taking the time out to come out or come to our virtual session tonight. We really, truly appreciate that. And even though it is an intimate little group, I hope that we can answer any questions that you may have about our zone program or anything just in general that you would like to know about the process or even Dorp High School. So again, my name is Carolyn Gannon. I have a few staff members who are here with me. And if we can, if you'd like to introduce yourselves? Mr. Doesn't matter who starts. Ms. Pascal, you want to begin?
Sure. I'm Francesca Pascali. I am a math teacher at New Dorp.
Hi, I'm Ms. Patricio, and I'm an English teacher at New Dorp.
My name is Dwayne Britton, and I'm in the guidance department at New Dorp.
Okay, so let's begin. So you may or may not know some of this information, but I'm going to assume I'm going to start you from the very beginning. New Dorp High School is a smaller learning community school, meaning that all of the students who attend our school select one of 8 programs that is themed around an interest. On the high school application, students have an opportunity to put down zoned program, New Dorp's zoned program, as an option. So again, you may or may not know this, but your application will allow you to put as many as 12 different programs down, and they should be put down in the order in which you are most interested in a program. So technically, let's say you have a extremely high interest in New Dorp High School, you would have the ability to be able to put down all 8 smaller learning communities as well as the zoned program for a total of 9 New Dorp High School programs if you wanted to do that. We've included here on the screen the program code. R20Z is the program code for our zone program. It is what is considered to be an unscreened program, meaning that you are not selected for this program based on any criteria. So there are no grades, attendance, state test scores that are required in order to match to our zoned program. Anyone who lives in our geographic region who puts down zoned as a choice on their application is 100% guaranteed to at least match to the zone program. But hopefully there are other programs that you're indicating higher on your list of choices on your application. But if you live within our zone, our geographic zone, you will automatically have this at least as a choice. For those of you who may or may not live in our geographic zone, but live somewhere on Staten Island, you also have an opportunity to apply to us as a zone program, but that is not a guarantee that you would match to us as a zone program. It's an algorithm that the Department of Education uses to determine how many applicants we would be able to take through our zoned program choice. As I said earlier, we are a smaller learning community school, which means that, as I said, all of our students live, and I use that word because that's what our principal refers to it as, live in one of the smaller learning communities. So unlike other high schools that have a general education program or a liberal arts program, we don't have that like other schools have. So if, for example, you are matched to us through zoned, you will then eventually be asked to select one of the smaller learning communities that has seats available in their program. So no students are in a general program with general courses, general electives. Every one of our students is in a special program. So having said that, one of the disadvantages to getting matched to New Dorp's zoned program is that you are going to be offered or asked to make a selection to accept a seat in one of our programs. But generally, there are only seats available in our less desirable programs because most of our programs fill their seats during the main round of the application process. So zoned for us is really a default program and not a program in which students reside for us. So you would be asked to pick one of the programs that we have seats left available. And you know, oftentimes, and this is really part of the message that we're hoping to get across, is that some people are under the impression that it's important just to get into New Dorp and then we can internally make those changes into the programs that you perhaps really want your child to attend. And sometimes, unfortunately, our more popular programs, they're just not seats available to make that happen. If the goal is just to attend the local zoned high school because it's close to where you live and there's really no preference in terms of the types of elective offerings that your child takes, then zoned may make sense for you because, you know, there will be a sequence of courses that you'll be asked to take over the 4-year period once you are placed in one of those 8 smaller learning communities. So I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to ask anybody if they want to come off of mute to ask your questions, or if you would prefer to continue to ask the questions in the chat. That's perfectly okay. And one of the 4 of us will hopefully be able to answer your questions. Stunned into silence. So there is no zone academy. So approximately 100 students every year match to us through the zoned program through the application process. In June, we reach out to each and every one of those students and offer them a seat in one of the 8 smaller learning communities that has a seat available. So very quickly, just to give you a rundown of our 8 smaller learning communities, there we have a law and ROTC program. Thank you for that. That's great that we have the little chart. We'll start at the top at 12 o'clock is our Health Science Institute. To the right, we have the Academy of Fine and Dramatic Arts. We have our law and ROTC program. We have our Education and Leadership Academy, our Math Science Institute, our Communication and Media Arts, our Corporate Center for Business and Technology, and our Forensics program. So in June, those students who match to our zoned program, we speak to each and every student and say, okay, here's where we have seats available. And typically, the 4 programs that typically have no seats available: health science, forensics, our corporate center, and math science. Typically, those programs do not have any seats available in them. And so we would then ask you to select one of the other 4 SLCs to be in for the next 4 years. And so what that means for us is that you attend class with a smaller group of students. You have dedicated teachers to that smaller learning community. You have a counselor and assistant principal who work closely with the students in that small learning community. But you will take only the elective courses in that program where there is that seat available. So I need you to understand that that's why putting down zoned as a possibility, it's sort of like you get what you get. You get where there's leftover seats available. How many seats are in each small learning community? We typically have 3 sections on the 9th grade level in 34 students in each section. So my math teacher, Miss Pascali, that's 100.
It's around 100. Yeah, 100.
102, I think. I think it's 102 in each program. How do you find out what school you're zoned for? So, Isabella, are you a public school student or are you a Catholic school student?
Public.
Okay, so your public school guidance counselor will be able to tell you what school do you currently go to right now?
IS-24.
Right. So IS-24 can either be us or Tottenville, depending upon where you live. But your guidance counselor should easily be able to tell you which school you are zoned for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So the other thing that I'm sure you are well aware of at this point is that the entire application process this year is delayed, and the DOE has not yet decided on a timetable for the application process. So typically, applications are due sometime like this week. And then in January, the high schools get a chance to look at the applications to see who put down choices on their application. But they have not released that timeline yet. And so part of the difficulty is that they're still trying to figure out for the screened programs and the ed op programs, what criteria is going to be available for high schools to make a decision and rank students. So the other, our small learning communities are mostly ed op programs with the exception of math science. And what that means is that we rank students based on typically their attendance, their grades, their 7th grade grades, and their 7th grade state test scores. But with being in remote learning last year, and also with the fact that there were no state tests given last year, the DOE is not sure yet what criteria they're going to use to make that the basis of those decisions on. And until that happens, they have not yet told us when we can expect that the application process is going to begin. Any other questions? So to be very clear, anybody who matches to our zone program must select one of those 8 smaller learning communities, but only the communities that have seats that are available. So they are typically the programs that are less popular in the sense that, and Mr. Britton is a member of the health science program. That is a very desirable program and very difficult to get into, and absolutely students who match to us in our zone program will not really have an opportunity to select that as one of their choices. Will parents have a heads up as to when applications are due, or when they will tell us day or two before? So as soon as the Department of Education has made a decision, that information is going to be shared at your school, as well as posted on our website. And I can tell you that it will not be where you'll have 1 or 2 days to decide. But what I will tell you is that it will probably be a little bit shorter of a time period. Typically, like I said, applications are usually due the first week in December, and they've given 8th graders September, October, November to do their research. That's part of the reason why we're hosting these events now, because they're not going to give you 3 months to do research before you have to fill out your application. They may give you a much shorter time period because they still have to let you know before school ends in June. And in order to do that, they're going to have to cut back the time a little bit. Is the zone program in a different building or a section than the smaller learning communities? Okay, so the zone program, again, is not a program. Nobody resides in the zone program at all. Every student who matches to zoned must go into one of the 8 smaller learning communities. And if you've been in New Dorp High School, does somebody want to just describe a little bit the layout of our building?
So the layout of our building, we have 4 wings. There's a north wing, an east wing, a south wing, and a west wing. Usually there are 2 smaller learning communities that are dedicated to each wing. So for instance, in the north wing, it's math, science, and health science. In the west wing, it's education and leadership and forensics. In the south wing, it's corporate center and law and J ROTC. And then in the East Wing, it's fine and dramatic arts and communication arts. So you kind of get to stay with your cohort of students that are studying the same things that you're studying.
So it's a way in which students can attend a large high school, but get a small school feel because they're not traveling all over the building all day long. They're staying primarily in one section of the building, especially on the 9th and the 10th grade level. Students take the majority of their classes in the wing of their smaller learning community. So it does give that much smaller school feel to our building. But again, the zone program is not a program. It means that you're matching to New Dorp High School, and then you're going to have to select one of the programs that still has seats available. So you have to be okay, if you match to zoned, you have to be okay accepting wherever there is a seat, unfortunately, because we're not going to be able to offer you a seat in all of the 8 smaller learning communities. Okay, Monica asks, if you don't like the program we first picked, can we switch to another program? Anybody want to answer that, or do you want me to answer that? Go ahead, Mr. Britton.
So the program that you get selected to, you have to see that through your first year at New Dorp High School. So let's just say you selected to education and leadership. Sometime in the spring, you'll have a chance to put in an application for one of the other small and learning communities, but it's the same idea where you're only able to put in and grant and gain a seat if there's a seat available. So if from people moving, people going to different schools, maybe right now there's no seats in health science, but 10 seats open up, you would then be able to apply through application at the end of your freshman year for one of those 10 seats. And same thing, first come, first serve, along with kind of how well you've done through the year. So it's an extra incentive to keep your grades high, even if you might not have landed in the SLC that you wanted to be in.
Good question, though. Any other questions? Any questions about the process? Is there anything that anybody wants to know about New Dorp High School in general that we can answer? Okay. Why is tech only taught the last 2 years where other high schools teach tech for 4 years? In what program, Monica, are you referring to that tech is only taught the last 2 years? Because that's not necessarily the case. Which program are you referring to? Business and technology. Oh, Ms. Pascali, can you answer this question?
I'm in the Law Institute, so I'm not
Oh,
sure. Sorry.
sorry. So there is a sequence of courses that the students take, and remember, it's business and technology. Corporate Center is what's called a CTE program, meaning Career and Technical Education. It's a state-approved program, and so there's a very prescribed sequence of courses that the students have to take. And so they don't start off with the tech courses in the beginning. You're correct, but there are also other elective courses that students can take along the way. But in 9th grade, you're definitely not going to take a technology course if you're in that particular program. Other programs, there are technology courses, and I'm just going to give this as an example. In ACMA, Communication and Media Arts, students take a class called Visual Communications in freshman year, and starting in 9th grade all the way through, they're all tech-based courses that the students are taking courses in. Monica's got all the good questions tonight. I like a student who comes prepared. So I don't want to keep Is there anything, anything that anybody else wants to add that I may have skipped over or? Okay. I don't want to keep you any longer than we need to this evening unless you have additional questions. What I can tell you is that we are here to help you in this process. And if you decide to put down New Dorp High School as one of the programs on your application, you can feel free to reach out to me at any point in time if you just have a question, not only about New Dorp, but about the whole process. I'm more than happy to help you answer, help answer that question. So I want to thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate it and hope you have a wonderful evening. I know, I wish we could give you a tour of the building as well. My contact information is, I'm going to put it right here in the chat. cgannon@schools.nyc.gov. We are hoping that in the spring, if things are a little bit better, that we may be able to do something where at least virtually we can connect students with students who match to New Dorp High School with our current freshmen, sort of like a little virtual shadow program. But unfortunately, with everything going on with COVID, there's no way we're going to be able to do anything live physically in our building anytime soon. So that's a bummer for us.
Hi, good evening. This is John. Can I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
So you mentioned earlier that there are certain programs that I guess get overpopulated relatively quick. So I guess my question is for new students that are coming into the 9th grade, let's use the corporate center as an example. You only have 100 seats, but 200 students apply. What's the selection process? Is it random? Is it the first 100 that apply? How does that work?
So students are ranked, and they're ranked based on, typically they're ranked based on criteria, and we have a rubric, and that rubric includes students' attendance, their 7th grade grades, and their state test scores. But unfortunately, because of being in remote learning last year, we don't have state test scores to go by. We do not have, attendance was taken differently because of the remote situation, and grades were indicated on the final transcript differently than they have in the past. So in the past, you would get a numeric grade, and I believe for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I believe they received letter grades. Is that correct?
6th, 7th, and 8th is usually percentages, the higher they go.
Right, but it was, so they did their grading, you did your grading a little bit differently. Like for us last year, high schoolers were allowed to opt to get a CR for a passing grade instead of a numeric grade. So what we do is we take that criteria and we award certain point values for perfect attendance, a certain point value for students who have 5 to 0 absences, from 5 to 10 absences, as an example. And every student receives a score, and that score is then ranked in order. And then we put down on the app, on the ranking for us on our side is that everybody who applies to all of our programs, students are ranked according to that criteria, and the seats fill based on that ranking. So the other piece to that also is based on where you put the program down on the application. So you have up to 12 spots on the application. So if you put down a program in the first spot, you're more likely to match to that program than if you put it down in the 12th spot, because by the time the computer gets to 12, all of our 100 spots will have been filled by students who put that program down in a higher location.
Thank you. I just have one more follow-up question. Our child has an IEP currently. I'm assuming that's honored considering you're a public school.
Yeah.
So if he has like currently sets as one of his related services, do you guys have something comparable in high school?
Yep, we have a full array of support services in every one of our smaller learning communities. So whether your child has SETs or ICT classes or related service supports, we accommodate every aspect of a student's IEP.
Great, thanks so much.
Not a problem. And also in every program, the only exception to that is our math science program. Our math science, which is our only screen program, and it is highly, highly competitive. We do not have a self-contained component to that program, but we do take students in with an IEP that indicates that they have SETs or ICT.
Thank you.
Hi, Miss Gannon. I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, that was my son typing, okay, but I had to like add on.
Okay.
Great questions, Monica. And I was like, who? And was my son typing along?
Well, he has great questions. You should be very proud.
Thank you, thank you. I have a question too regarding that gentleman, what he said, because last year, I think it was like in March, they started remote because of the COVID shutdown of all the schools.
Yes.
And when I did the parent-teacher conference, I did ask the teachers how were they grading it. They said no matter what, they have to pass the student, whether or not they came, whether or not they handed in the work or whatnot. So like that gentleman said before about how will the kids, next year, how would you pick the students going into the program?
So that's the reason why they haven't released the timeline yet for the application process, because the DOE is still trying to figure out how high schools will select students. They're going to have to tell us which criteria we can look at to make that decision. And so until the Department of Education makes that decision, they may say, and again, this year's crazy too. So it's not really like, there are a lot of students who are fully remote, some students who are hybrid. They may say, you could only look at a student's attendance to make a decision on whether or not they're going to get into a program or not. We don't know the answer to that yet. So that's why we're all sort of on hold for now.
They were also basing on, the children's family situations, finances, all that was like compelled into, how you're going to grade the child. Because, not every child got a device from the DOE.
Right.
Not all the devices worked because they were a lot broken or, a lot of Wi-Fi's. Some houses didn't have Wi-Fi. They had to take that all into consideration. Even though if your child is busting their hump, waking up every day, getting onto the meet every day, I said to one of the teachers, I think, yeah, I understand some kids, but if my kid's going to above and beyond, you're going to give my son this, that child who barely comes in, hands in the work late, you have to accept it, but he will get the same grade as my son.
Right. That's incredibly frustrating.
It was.
And having a son who attends high school, who's a 10th grader in high school, I definitely understand how frustrating that can be.
A lot of kids became nocturnal.
Say that again, please.
A lot of kids became like vampires, like they stay up all night, they couldn't wake up, it was hard. I understand it was hard, and it was like a very kind of depressing situation, but the teacher was there to teach, and us, the students have to be there to learn, to pass on, to get to the next grade.
Yep.
I just think it was like, kind of like a unfair situation, but you have to just go roll with the punches kind of a way. So that's why when that gentleman asked, like, how would you select what students go into what, the programs, how would you do that? How will you do the selection? By lottery? By what?
We're going to have to wait and see and wait for the Department of Education to make a decision on what criteria we're allowed to make that decision. So unfortunately, I can't answer that, but I can tell you that I know that's why it's taking so long, because they're wrestling with all of those things that you just said. It's not an easy decision, but there's going to have to be some criteria that high schools are going to use to get into certain programs. And some people are not going to be happy about it, but that's just unfortunately the way it's going to be. But as soon as we know what that criteria is, we'll definitely post it on our website. And because you attended this information session, we'll also email that out to you.
Okay, I think now the mayor's talking to the chancellor's talking to the UFT union your reps right now. Everything's like in a big loop,
Yep.
and then they say the nurses are going to go on strike.
Mom, can you put my iPad right?
So I guess we'll just wait and see what the mayor and the chancellor and your union rep says.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's a little bit it doesn't pay to take guesses because we don't know. We're probably not going to be right. So we're just going to have to wait and see and be patient.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Any other questions before we sign off? Okay. So we're going to sign off officially, and we want to thank you all for coming tonight. And again, see Gannon at schools.nyc.gov. If you have any questions, you could go to the website, and my email's the one all over all of the articulation stuff. So please feel free to reach out to me. So thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, Isabella. Do you have any questions for us?
How are you? This is Isabella's father. I have a question.
Hi, Isabella, Father. How are you?
I hope everyone's doing well.
We are. Thank you. I hope same for you.
I just have a question about the process. There's 12 spots, but you don't have to fill out all 12 spots, right?
No, you don't. You don't. You could put down, if you really want to put down only one, you can. But I would say put down any program that your daughter is interested in and would be happy attending.
I got it. I understand. One more question I have is, if two different schools accept her program, could that be the case? Only one
No.
school accepts?
No, she's only going to get one match.
Okay.
So
That definitely answers my question. I wasn't
Right.
sure how it worked, if you had a time to pick or whatever. Okay, that really helps me out a lot. I wasn't sure about that.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, guys.
All right, have a nice night.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I just dropped him.